New York father pulls his daughter out of Brearly with a message to the whole school. Is the dam starting to break? Yeah, I have not read the letter. I'm aware of it. Certainly in the last month or two, from what I've seen, largely through the efforts of Barry Weiss and Caitlin Flanagan, the problems with the wokeness in the elite private schools, in particular, elite private secondary schools, is coming to a head. Is becoming really well known in some circles. That said, the rhetoric that we see in other places looks unchanged, as if that's not happening at all. So I don't know. I don't know what it takes. I know that, I think it was fall of 2019 that James Lindsay said that he thought it was happening. The dam was breaking. People were becoming aware of it. It's like, I don't think so, man. Like, I don't think it's where you think it is. And of course it didn't.
Yeah.
It only continued to get worse. So, there've been a lot of these moments. And I guess I don't want to get my hopes up.
Well, here's a frightening prospect.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. There are chances that we've hit bottom. It always seems like we might have, and then things just get stupider. But imagine that the elite schools wake up and the parents who get it, and there are likely to be many, successfully fight back. And then once again, we have another version of this trick that involves the distinction between private schools and public schools, right? Where we underfund the public schools. Those who can afford to send their kids to private schools don't suffer from having hobbled their kids in bad public schools. And it creates a self-reinforcing pattern of the distribution of opportunity that nobody needs to own up to having created. In other words, sabotage the public schools, privately subsidize the private schools so that they're better. And the point is, what is that? That's the wealthy hobbling other people's children so they can't compete.
Yeah. It's kind of the opposite at the moment. Like, the private schools are worse.
Are worse. But imagine that they come to their senses and suddenly the only schools that aren't insane are elite private schools, right? One can easily imagine that world because we've lived in it.
I guess. I guess I'm not sure why we're imagining the world that is the inverse of the one we're in right now, which is plenty bad enough. And
because wealthy people have the means to erect their own system if they need to, and that, in effect, seeing a novel version of an old game would not be surprising.
Something that will need to happen. So it was a father, right, that pulled his daughter out, that wrote this letter and pulled it out. And I think the dam is going to have to break with the mothers if that's going to happen. And, you're imagining that this amazing thing happens and then it becomes yet another reinforcement of class privilege.
Yep.
Rather than talk about the dam having the amazing thing having happened and then one of the possible immediate after effects. I think for that dam to break, the tougher parent in most situations to see this ideology for what it is and to resist it and to be disagreeable and to stand up to it and to say, I don't think so, not for me. Of course, I care about Black people. This is really uncomfortable. Why did I just lose all my friends? It's gonna be mothers. And I think, so far many of the examples we're seeing, like Barry Weiss posted a piece written by a teacher at an elite school on the East Coast this week who's standing up to this, a male teacher. And these are anecdotes, but I think what we need for the dam to break is for more women to stand up and say, actually, I'm going to change the expectation in the community that we don't do this, that this is actually, that this thing that we are all on board with is actually the diabolical thing. Because it's it's just going to be necessary if things are going to change.
Yeah. So actually, I think you're making a very important point.
This is just apropos, as you know, and I think I mentioned maybe last week. I've been asked to write this commentary on a piece on historical relationships between women and men, and women and men, and all this, but like deep historical relationships between women and how it affects relationships today. And I've been thinking about the different kinds of competition that men engage in and that women engage in, and what that looks like when men and women interact, and how much we pretend that that deep history doesn't exist back when, and to our peril, right? And so much of the literature is just insanely stupidly written, the scientific literature, of course, because it always is. It says things like, well, women don't compete. Women say they don't like to compete, therefore they don't compete. Women, when asked to engage in this, doodly competitive thing, said they didn't want to play, therefore women don't compete. It's like, oh my God, like, of course women compete. Women compete all the time just as much as men, but differently. And in a word, it tends to be that men tend to compete overtly and women tend to compete covertly. And there are so many downstream effects of this that are so important, that it will also be, and this is something, I think this is new, I think no one has said this before, it will also be harder to opt out of covert than overt games, than covert than overt competition, because as a man, you can like say, yep, not playing, and you might get chided for it, you might get shamed for it, but everyone knows he's not playing, he's doing something different, right? And if the competition is covert, it's all behind the back, and it's gossip, and it's sidelining, and it's social, and you can't just say like, I'm not playing.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yes you are. We're not going to let you not play. So
she says she's not playing. Oh, that's a really good move.
And sometimes it will be.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes that is a move, actually. So anyway, like, I'm wrapped up in this space anyway. But in order for this dam to break, we need women who are somewhat dominant in whatever little social hierarchies they're in at these schools to actually make the moves to make it the desirable position to be standing up to this. Because until that happens, those few dads who stand up and do it are not going to make the difference, I don't think.
So I think I just want to put three things on the list here. You've mentioned disagreeableness, which is more common in
Exactly.
men.
I did so intentionally.
Right.
Yes.
Which is a necessary skill to say no in the face of something like this.
Right.
There is the question of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
This movement hijacks compassion, and compassion is going to be more easily hijacked in women, very likely. It's probably a more intensely developed skill. The nature of being female being one that requires this, more directly for mothering, for example.
Right.
And then there's the question about this distinction between males and females in terms of the preferences for the types of things they engage in.
Mm-hmm.
And so the classic way to describe it is people versus things, where men tend to be more interested in things, women tend to be more interested in people. And the thing is, people is the thing is, I said it. I said it because I'm masculine. No, the thing is that the world of things is a world of conservation laws that is unforgiving, right? And so the world of conservation laws is one in which one discovers that an illogical system does not function, right? A world of people does not necessarily have conservation laws in the same sense. And so there's a question about whether there is a gender split here that might be setting us up for disaster.
Yeah, no, don't feel like you have to cut it short. I just have about 8 things to say in response. So we have talked about understanding something about the physical world as opposed to being entirely based in the social world,
exactly.
And that does map somewhat onto things versus people. And so, given that it is a well replicated psychological finding that men are, and including babies, including other cultures, right, like more interested in things on average tendency, and women in people and animals, right, that would also suggest that many women have more of their entire life invested in the relationships that they have. And so it actually comes at a cost to a higher percentage of their life to go against the crowd. Whereas men, if they are engaged with these things that actually are meaningful to them, they can go to their damn shop, be like, okay, well, I stood up to that and now I get to tinker, or, whatever it is.
Right.
And, it's a caricature, but
it's not your whole world
it's
collapsing.
not your entire world collapsing. So they're just, I haven't actually found even the typical character trait by gender that goes against this model. Like, it all just like falls, which makes it, this is one of the few things I'm like, God, did someone really smart devise this to, capture women and then take out a whole society? Because this seems so deviously perfect to prey on many of the best characteristics of women and turn them into the worst characteristics for society.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to even say these things out loud, but at some level, this does, the whole woke ideology feels like it has dragged civilization into the dynamics of a dysfunctional marriage, right? It feels, it just does. And I mean, I don't like saying it. On the other hand, it's not like everything isn't at stake. We're actually talking about, the dumbest policy proposals one could conceive of, and yet we are entertaining them because nobody's in a position to say, actually, you can't abolish the police. Here's why. End of story. Right? That's what you need to say. Right? Mm-hmm. Sorry, abolishing the police, not on the table. Here's why. Mm-hmm. So anyway, yeah, we need more disagreeable women.
On it. All right.
You can only be one disagreeable woman.